is up, guys? Welcome to a Cast for Crows, our Game of Thrones inspired podcast here on Deadscreen.net. We have reached the finale of Season 6, and today we're going to break down the Winds of Winter. I am your host, a man has no name.
Hodor.
Alexa, because I'm not interesting like that.
I would kind of like to start this one out by saying, in Battle of the Bastards last week, we had a lot of people coming out saying, "Oh my God, that was like the best Game of Thrones episode ever." And Andy, you and I kind of disagreed with that for the most part. But I want to say that this week, with that title, this episode had to be something very special. And I honestly think it's probably my favorite episode of Game of Thrones to date.
Yeah, that episode was amazing.
This was one of those episodes, and they've done this near the end of every season where they try to make every little bit matter. But this was the first episode that I really felt every time they cut to a character, their storyline took a big step forward. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And this episode is one of the longest, if not the longest episode ever. And I think it needed all of that time. It wasn't like it was excessively long for no reason. It's like we needed to see all of the stuff because a lot of storylines were wrapped up and things are the show is clearly coming to its end slowly, and we needed to see all of this.
Right. So we were saying before, I don't remember his name, but the guy who directed this one also did Battle of the Bastards and Hardhome last season.
Yep.
And you can really tell he has a very different style. It's not the typical Game of Thrones style. That very first scene with Cersei, I think it was a bell ringing, and it just kept cutting to different people getting that was not very typical Game of Thrones, but it really helped set the scene for what was coming next. And they Game of Thrones, because of all those storylines, it feels like they can't afford to set the scene like that all that often. So when they do it, it really it gets you all amped up, and you're like, shit's going down right now. I don't know what it is, but something's gonna happen. And that whole intro scene, even with the little kids, and I just thought it was super awesome.
Yeah, it felt so much like a movie, like Alexa said, and I loved the music, the piano music for that entire King's Landing scene was just incredible. And you were right, it had this, it felt different from Game of Thrones. It didn't feel like your typical Game of Thrones episode at all, but I thought it was better. And that's saying a lot. They improved on I thought they improved on what the best Game of Thrones episodes already were.
Yeah,
this felt like a new level to me.
Yeah, I know, I definitely agree. I remember also right after you watched it, Joe, you sent me a link of just the soundtrack for the episode. You're I'm just listening to this nonstop. This is amazing. So it's true, the soundtrack was amazing. The cinematography was so crisp and beautiful. I know it's something I've been talking about crazy, but when I was watching this whole episode, I was in awe of the cinematography. Just the way everything was handled, which we'll get to more, but just the way all the scenes were set up, everything felt very eerie, we knew something dark was happening. So I think they did an excellent job.
So outside of the intro theme song, I feel like Game of Thrones isn't necessarily known for its interesting or exciting music. I mean, they have little bits and pieces, but
I find the Rains of Castamere to be a good song, and it's always you always know something's going to happen when the Rains of Castamere starts
compared
playing.
to other shows or movies, it's that intro scene with the piano you're talking about. Maybe if it was overused in the past, it would have sort of been all right, but this was because it felt almost out of place. You sort of knew that something interesting, it worked in that scenario, but it didn't feel very Game of Thrones, and it made you pay more attention to what was going on, I felt.
Agree.
So, at the risk of making myself look stupid, what happened was the Mad King had a bunch of wildfire under the city in various places. So I'm assuming he has it under the keep, under wherever the sparrows were, under key parts of the city instead of just that area. So we're assuming there's more, right?
It's a safe bet, yeah.
Okay. And
see, what I thought was that they, well, I mean, I guess they not necessarily, but like a lot of people were saying that they just kind of put all the wildfire underneath the Sept of Baelor. But like, I don't know if it's just that that's what happened, or if it's just like there was a fuck ton already there, so there could be a bunch everywhere else.
So Cersei knew about the wildfire. She had her trial coming up, and she couldn't do a trial by combat, and so she knew she was sort of screwed. So what she does is she has the mountain, like, just keep Tommen in his room, and then she doesn't go. And does she lock the doors, or do the sparrows just sort of keep everybody there because that's what they're supposed to do? Because it seemed like people weren't getting out.
It was the latter, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because Marjorie tried getting out and they wouldn't let her out.
And so that's where my little bit of confusion was. But then we see... Who's the sparrow guy that we had followed for a while? Okay, Lancel. So we see Lancel. He's going to get Cersei, right? Mm-hmm. And instead he sees a little kid just running around and decides it's more important to follow him. And he goes up to where the wildfire is and gets shanked by the little kid and starts crawling, getting pretty close. And then the little candles get down in the wildfire, and then the whole thing nukes up. And so, what was the building called?
Sept of Baelor?
Just annihilated. I'm assuming there's going to be a big green crater there at the beginning of next season. And so we lost the High Sparrow, we lost Loras, we lost Marjorie, we lost...
You lost Marjorie's father.
Her dad, we lost the... Who was the other guy?
Tywin's brother, her uncle.
Right. So we...
Yeah. I mean, it seems like we lost a great majority of the court.
So...
And then we also lost Maester Pycelle, who I was not upset about at all.
Explain to me what that deal was. Why was that?
I can take this one. It was just kind of... Those children were obviously Qyburn's little birds who stabbed him, but the inspiration from this scene actually came from the Book 5 epilogue, where it was a different scenario, but it was Varys who pops up in King's Landing after disappearing for a while, and he and some of his little birds murder Pycelle and Kevin Lannister, that was Tywin's brother. And so that's kind of where they got the inspiration from. But yeah, Qyburn, I guess I can only imagine Cersei specifically commanded Qyburn to do that, just as kind of like he said, out with the old and with the new.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Well, I also think, wasn't Pycelle around during the Targaryen time?
He's been around a long ass time. Yeah.
But what I mean by that is so he's just kind of like a fair weather maester. He's there for whoever's in power. So I think Cersei didn't trust his loyalties at all.
Probably the one correct decision she made.
And so we cut back to Tommen, and once Tommen sort of realizes what happens, he just sort of nopes out. He opens the window, walks away. We have this nice eerie still shot of the window.
It was so
and then
eerie.
He just sort of walks up and jumps. Or falls, I guess, more appropriately.
It was kind of, in a way, I thought Tommen... It was kind of as strange as this will sound, it was kind of a nice way to go, because Tommen realized that he was always going to be a puppet. He loved Marjorie, and he thought he was trying to do the right thing by aligning with the faith. Everything he did, he tried to do it for the greater good, but he realized that he could never be in control of his own life with Cersei there. And so he was like, well, I can't live as a free man. I'm going to die as a free man then. And I think that was why he did it. Partially losing Marjorie, but also partially well, I can't be free in this life, I'll at least control my own death.
Yes, and it was an interesting end to the prophecy Cersei heard when she was a child. It was very interesting that he took off his crown, because the prophecy says, all gold their crowns, all gold their shrouds. And when I was thinking about it, I'm pretty sure they all had some sort of gold on when they died. I'm pretty sure Myrcella's dress was gold, and then Joffrey and Tommen were both wearing their crowns. So I just thought that was an interesting tidbit.
So, sort of jumping a little bit to the end, so Cersei, after this whole nonsense, is, I guess, next sort of in line. So she ends up sitting on the Iron Throne and being crowned queen.
I mean,
it's interesting to see how cold she's become, because she was so unaffected by Tommen's death.
Well, I'm wondering if, like, she knew that was because it seems like she was convinced that prophecy was going to come true. And so I wonder if, while planning this whole thing, she was like, Tommen could maybe be in there, or maybe, like, I wonder if that was just the casualty to it. If she knows she can't stop it from happening, then just sort of accept it and move on. But I don't know.
See, the way I was talking about it with my friend recently, and he was saying that she, like, pretty much was like, well, Tommen, like, basically, like, sentenced me to death by not letting me have the trial by combat. This is a casualty of war, like, not my problem anymore. Like, he basically screwed me over, so I don't really care anymore. I also think she's just, like, grown cold because she's lost all her children already. She has really nothing else that matters to her, so now it's time to just claim power.
So, and I mean, it's not like she pushed him out the window or anything. She sort of left it up to him, so I don't know. I think it was just one of those things where she knew she couldn't prevent that prophecy from happening anymore, so she's just sort of accepted it and let it happen.
Yeah, and her love for her children was the one thing that, like, still
kept her sort of sane.
I was going to say it humanized her, and that's what made it so disturbing, is that she didn't show any emotion at all, and now she's like, I don't want to say she's gone, like, mad queen entirely, but I think she's just completely... I think it's more that she's empty inside now. Like, she just doesn't feel anything except her lust for power. And now she finally has it. Like, there is no question of children or Robert or whoever else. No one is in her way anymore.
Right.
And I think there's a hint of Mad Queen developing there. I think the fact that she basically did what the Mad King was trying to do is indicating that she's getting there. And I think Jaime is definitely picking up on that. When he landed in King's Landing, he was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then, like, that little, like, eye contact that they made, like, she looks so cold and, like, he looks so disturbed. Like, do we think that he's going to be a Kingslayer?
Yeah.
I guess a Queenslayer?
I was thinking that because we had talked before about Jaime sort of being Cersei's end, and I really like the narrative that he becomes the Queenslayer, like, a second-time Kingslayer sort of thing. I think that's a very interesting narrative in a world where what Jaime did, I think, was considered, like, outrageous and sort of insane. Like, nobody does stuff like that. And so...
Well, like, yeah, like, and Joe and I were talking, like, Cersei literally did what Jaime was trying to prevent when he killed the Mad King. So, I mean, I think it's coming to a point where he's gonna have to stop her some way, and it's probably gonna be in her
I'm putting my bet on that Jaime takes down Cersei at some point.
I agree.
Cool.
So then we switch back to Sam, who we hadn't seen in like 8 episodes or something.
Yeah, I was so excited when he showed up. I was like, yay, Sam!
And so he first showed up. I always assumed that Old Town was like a whole bunch of shacks in mud. Like, it just sounds like a shitty place. And I was like, where the heck is he? This place looks cool. And then I eventually put 2 and 2 together, and like, that was a cool place. Like, I feel like in terms of scale, that was one of the biggest, like, cities or like structures that we had seen.
It's very, like, opulent as well. Like, it's very, like, it looks extremely nice.
Right, which is kind of rare.
Mm-hmm.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but Sam shows up, and he's like, I'm gonna be the new maester, and the guy's like, well, not really. He's like, no, really. And he's like, okay. And so he's like, you can go hang out in the library, and the library's like a city of books.
Well, it shows how little communication they've had with Old Town since Lord Commander Mormont died, because they thought he was still the the Lord Commander. So it shows how just like little, I guess, like with Maester, is it Aemon? Yep. He was just losing it, and he just did not really fulfill his duties. So I think it's like a testament to like how desperately they needed Sam.
What is Sam's goal right now? I know he's supposed to...
I have a thought.
Okay.
Like, obviously, on the surface, it's to train to be a new Maester for the Night's Watch, but I think while he's there, I suspect he's going to find some new way to battle against the army of the dead and the Night's King.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where he finds a solution, not just, like, some little collection of Valyrian steel or anything, but, like, something different.
Lightbringer.
Yeah, something in, like, an old text that helps them fight them or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I think he'll do while he's there.
Do you think he'll find out where... Because Lightbringer was Azor Ahai's sword, right? That defeated the White Walkers?
Yep.
Do you think it could be something along the lines of that?
I hadn't thought of that. I suppose it's possible.
So what's the Easter egg?
So I'm really bad at describing things. It's just it's a small little tidbit, but at the end of the theme song, we see that like little like circle thing that has like all the... Yeah, I noticed that. So that was in the library. Yeah. So that was just like a little small little Easter egg. I thought it was cute to notice.
Do we know what that is? Is it just like a thing? The spinny thing with all the stuff on it in the intro that is apparently hanging there.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I just thought it was a cute little Easter egg.
And so then they send out white ravens when Winter shows up?
That's correct.
And so when Sam showed up, he saw all these...
Yeah, long winter's coming.
I thought they were like seagulls, but apparently they were white ravens flying away to go tell everybody that Winter's finally
Winter is here.
All right.
Yeah.
So then we jumped over to Davos and Jon.
Oof, what a scene.
So, I'm a little confused on why she got off kind of scot-free.
Easily.
Yeah. And I assumed Davos to be that he was going to be so much more angry and like almost vengeful, but he kind of just yelled at her, and Jon was like, "Sorry, you got to go," and then she left.
I think Davos wanted something to happen to her, but I think he's so loyal to Jon at this point that he wasn't going to fight him on what Jon's like decided. So I think I don't know exactly why Jon let her off. I think he's just being noble Jon Snow and like trying not to make matters worse. So
jumping back to what we sort of talked about early on, when Jon was resurrected, he hung Ollie and then some of the other guys who betrayed him, and we were sort of under this impression that this new Jon was going to be a little more like aggressive and heartless, and that turned out not to be the case. So like I feel like that was old Jon, and I feel a little weird about that whole, they killed him, they brought him back, and it seems in the long run that it didn't do all that much to change his character, in my opinion. Early on, it felt like it did, maybe, but then these last couple episodes...
So, like, maybe it did at first, and he's slowly reverting back to who he really was before. Because I do think that it was a little less like Jon at the beginning of the season, and I think he's slowly becoming who he was again.
Right, because, like...
There's one thing with Jon is he's extremely moralistic. And I think that's not something that we would lose.
Plus, I think from our perspective personally, I think we can see that Melisandre still has a role to play at some point later on. So
yeah, I agree with that.
I think it was, like, if he was just going to be replaced with, like, Thoros of Myr or some other red priest, then they would have offed her. So the fact that they chose to let her live suggests that she'll be back soon enough.
Where do you think she's going?
She said to Arya when they met in like season 3 or 4 that they would meet again. So maybe that could happen. I don't know though.
Do you think Arya would want to kill her? Because Arya isn't her biggest fan, considering she basically like took Gendry from her.
Yeah, but she also revived Jon, who's like her best friend in the world. So I don't see her murdering Melisandre.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. I'm wondering with Arya, but I guess we'll get to Arya later on.
So we jump to Daenerys and Daario, and Dario's a little sad, and Daenerys isn't. That's my recap of that scene.
Well, I think what's important about that scene is that Daenerys is starting to realize that she's feeling more heartless than she thought she was. Where she had that whole little moment with Tyrion where she's like, I thought I'd be upset. I don't give a crap. So, like, she's like, I think she's starting to question what Tyrion had mentioned before about her, like, kind of acting like her father. And I think that was just kind of a moment of her being like, wait, like, please tell me this isn't happening to me. And I think Tyrion's like, no, like, you're fine. Like, that doesn't mean anything. He was just like your fuck buddy.
I kind of felt slightly differently. I felt like she felt that she was so close to achieving what she had been working towards that she was sort of just getting rid of all the distractions. Because I feel like that was sort of a distraction to what she was trying to do, if she's true.
I mean, I agree with you there. I think it's just that she was, like, freaked out by the fact that she didn't care.
True.
So I don't think it's so much that she's becoming that way because she's aware of it. It's not like she's like, oh, I just don't care and, like, whatever. It's not a big deal. Like, I think it's something where she's, like, noticing that she has some of those tendencies, but she's picking up on it and she's like, hold on, like, let me do something about this before it gets too bad.
Right. So, slightly off topic, but every time Dario's character comes on screen, I go, this is the guy that recast the other guy, and it just, like, annoys me to no end for no real reason. But, like, I want to sit down and watch them all back to back to back to back, and it's going to annoy me again when he's some, like, weird-looking blonde dude, and he gets replaced by some brown-haired dude with a beard. It just annoys me.
You gonna do that with Tommen, too?
Yeah, because Tommen was recast as well. And so was Marcella.
They recast because they were, like, little kids, and they sort of made them a little older so they could handle their roles a little better?
Well, I think they recast Daario for a number of reasons. For one, the actor who played the real Daario was in Deadpool, so I think he was a little busy doing stuff. But also, like, Dario's supposed to have, like... I like this Daario feels more masculine to me, which I think is, like... I don't think the other actor who played Daario would have had, like, the audacity to do some of the things that this new Daario had. So I think it was kind of like, we didn't do a good job with the character the first time. I think we need to, like, give it to someone else. It just bugs me, though, from a continuity I understand that. I remember when he came in, I was like, who's this guy? Like, is this the new Daario? Are we supposed to, like, not notice? Because this guy looks completely different.
So I need some help with something here. So we had Bran be dropped off by Uncle Benjen, who's this pseudo white human zombie thing. And then he just leaves. And I felt like the big reveal that it was Uncle Benjen was like, oh wow, this will be cool for this storyline. And then it's just like, he's gone already.
So at this point, like, I'm pretty sure the Cold Hands character doesn't have a significant role either, from what we've seen. Like, he just kind of helps them get past the wall. So I don't think it was so much that. I think it's just, like, they're not really sure where to go with him until more material is released, because he really hasn't done a whole bunch thus far. I think his main thing was to guide Bran to where he needed to get, and he did that, so now he's gonna just see how he can help in the battle against the Dead.
So, I mean, thinking about it from, like, somebody who even understands less of this than I do, like, there's this relatively big build-up to him taking his mask off and being like, oh shit, it's Uncle Benjen. And, like, literally the next time we see them, they're dropping him off, and he's like, I'll see you guys later. It like, that just felt odd to me.
I hadn't thought of it like that, but just obviously I have a little more invested in Benjen. But,
right, and that's why from book readers they probably have a closer relationship and a better understanding, so like that means more. But like I think about it from my girlfriend's parents, who like watch the show every week, but that's all they do. Like to them, this interesting guy that they sort of hyped up shows up, and then now he's gone. It's like, okay.
But see, like, I didn't view it like that, and maybe it's because I'm more aware, but like, it's not like he's not coming back. He just can't help him anymore. So now he's gonna rally forces to try and
right.
see what he can do to stop this. So like, I didn't really view it so much as him kind of just like, well, I'm in and now I'm out. Like, I think it's just like, what else were we gonna see? Like, we're gonna see him walking with Bran. Like, there really wasn't a lot for him to do at this point. He did what he had to do.
I had assumed that we'd have like a scene of them walking and talking, and Bran would learn something, and it would have been like a beneficial moment for the show watchers to have learned something else. Like, that's sort of what I expected from that, because I didn't expect them to do anything all that crazy. But
don't think Benjen, like, I don't know how much Benjen could have told them that the
and I don't know, because I don't know enough about that character. That felt like an odd thing to me. So Benjen basically rode him up right to the wall and dropped him off, and then they're going to get their way through the wall?
I imagine so. But of course, Bran has the mark, so I don't know how they expect to get through, and then like surely the Night's King and his army will be able to come through too. So I don't know.
See, but that's the thing is like so Benjen made it a point to say that he couldn't go because the dead couldn't pass that point. So like, won't this kind of be like difficult for the Night's King to be able to pass? Like, I don't think it's just like he can just walk through and that's it.
There's some kind of magic built within the wall, but you'd have to imagine for show purposes the Night King will find some way to destroy it.
I do think that at some point, because otherwise it really wouldn't make any difference. Like, why would we care about the Night's King coming if he wasn't going to destroy it? But like, I think, and maybe
Bran's mark is the one that will like undo the magic or something when he crosses. I don't know, but
okay. So I'm trying to understand. So okay, because like at this point, like, why hasn't the Night King like caught up with him if he has the mark? Like, I'm trying to understand. Is it like, was that like a one-time thing, and then he can like see him for a little bit, and then he gets out of reach and he can no longer see him? Because like, if that were the case, like, he can just show up right there, and that's not a problem for them. Like, so I'm just trying to understand if this is, like, a mark that will forever tell him where Bran is, or if it was a momentary thing, and now it's kind of faded, and he needs to touch him again for him to always follow him.
I don't know. I have the answer, but I thought that it was, like, because didn't he see him while Bran was in that trance state? So I sort of assumed that it was sort of like the ring from Lord of the Rings, where in the movie version, if they put it on, Sauron was like, oh, look, there he is. Like, it was easier for him to see. And I assumed that if Bran's in that, like, trance state, then the Night's King can be like, oh, he's over there. But then if he's out of that trance state, it's harder for him to follow or something. He just, like, kind of feels where he's going. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was just taking my Lord of the Rings info and smashing it onto that.
That does seem to make sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he did touch him in a trance. So it makes sense that the connection would be stronger in that trance. Because I'm just, like, I'm just trying to understand, like, how much of a threat it is to them. If it's, like, a looming threat, or if it's just something that it's, like, just don't be stupid.
Yeah, and that makes going into that trance state a little more risky. Assuming that there are bigger payoffs each time they go in, it's sort of like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, we have to get ready, because they're going to figure out where we are. So, I think we've already talked about this, but what are the white trees? Like, because there's one in Winterfell. Like, is there, like, a handful of them? Are they super prevalent?
They used to be. They used to be throughout history, but then the First Men came and cut most of them down, so they're quite rare now.
So,
isn't that exactly why the White Walkers were created? To stop that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
So, it I'm assuming it's no coincidence Benjen sort of dropped him off right next to a tree.
Yeah. I think Benjen's pretty much aware that Bran got to that 97% upload and needs to finish the uploading before, because I think he needs him to know everything before he can serve an actual like extremely important purpose, because at this point he just kind of has like pieces of visions but not everything he needs to know. And I think, which we're going to get into next, but I think part of what he needed to know was Jon's parentage, to kind of like confirm to him that Jon may very well be a Azor Ahai reincarnate, or at least this generation's Azor Ahai.
So,
and I think that's why it's important we got
right.
the Tower
I have
of
a couple
Joy
questions about this whole thing. So
I'm ready to answer them.
From a show perspective only, are we supposed to have any idea who the dad is?
Okay. So this is something we discussed. So we know, but I've been seeing people being like, no, it's Robert Baratheon, and other people have said different things. But then HBO released an infographic showing that Rhaegar is Jon's father.
Is that just telling us, or was there stuff in the show?
I think there were indications of it. I mean, if you picked up on certain clues that they said, I think that pretty much confirmed it. I think Game of Thrones, I think that's something where they maybe failed show watchers, because I think that their point was that it was supposed to be very obvious, and people didn't necessarily always pick up on it. And I don't think that's so much that it's a problem with the show. I think it's people just weren't looking out for the clues.
I mean,
and let's go over the clues so you know.
Right, please.
Yeah. So one of the first clues I think that confirms it is the first Tower of Joy scene we saw. We had one of Rhaegar's men protecting the Tower of Joy and being like, Rhaegar wants this protected. So, like, I don't think he would want someone else's kid protected. I think he would be more concerned about protecting his own kid. So I think that's one of the major clues that indicates it. Joe, do you want to continue?
Yes, and in this Tower of Joy scene that we just got, Lyanna said, if Robert finds out, he'll kill him. You know he will. And if you think all the way back to Season 1, we know how much Robert hated Rhaegar. And we also have, if you'll remember, a scene with Littlefinger and Sansa in the Winterfell Crypts last season. They were talking by Lyanna's statue, and they were talking about it, and Sansa was like, yeah, then he had to go and kidnap and rape her, and Littlefinger just gave her this look like, oh, that's what they told you, huh?
I think also, like, the fact that Robert, like, insisted that she was raped, like, why would he assume that she was raped had she not be falling pregnant? Like, why would that make any difference at all? Like, why would he say she was raped?
No one knew, so I think that was just kind of assumed, and of course that's what started the entire rebellion. But that's the point, is no one ever knew what exactly happened, and now Bran does.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because she's like kind of Game of Thrones is like Helen of Troy figure. Like, she's this woman who started this war because someone took her and she was like, yeah, okay.
So, I think from only a show perspective and not knowing what I know from you guys, that it gets confusing for people who don't have like a face to put with the character. So, I mean, I understand it because I can come to you guys and ask what the heck was happening, but I think for people who like Rhaegar is just this name. Like, I feel like it's a disassociated name to some extent for people who aren't actively trying to follow like every little detail.
I think, and maybe it's just because I really want to see Rhaegar because he was supposed to be beautiful, but like, I want to see Rhaegar. I want to see like the tournament where they like allegedly fell in love, because I think it would help solidify this for people.
See, we talked about this, Alexa, and I suggested that Rhaegar would be seen next season, specifically because show watchers, like, this is exactly what we thought might happen, was a lot of people will react like Andy, and they're like, okay, who is the father? And even if they figure it out, they're like, well, okay, but why should we care just yet? And so I think like they had to show us Liana this season so that when they did reveal that she was the mother, that like show watchers only had a connection to it. And I think they still need to do the same thing with Rhaegar. So I kind of saw that scene like obviously it's confirmation for book readers and people like you who know the theories well. Yeah. But for specific show watchers like Andy, and there's tons of them out there, I think you still have to reveal Rhaegar through past visions.
I agree.
Before Bran can actually, like, you know,
make that
go to Winterfell and tell Jon, hey, these are your parents and this is what it means.
Because I felt like they intentionally did that because they, like, Lyanna was whispering to Ned and, like, you weren't hearing every word of it, you know? Yeah. It's like, I think it was intentionally doing that from just as a show perspective. We now know that it wasn't Ned's bastard, but we don't know. We may not know who the father is for the casual viewer.
And I think that's why the casual viewer, like, yeah, like, it was cool. He's not Ned's bastard, but, like, I don't think the casual viewer understands the magnitude.
Not yet.
Of this whole scene.
I completely agree.
Just because at this point it's kind of like, okay, so he's not Ned's daughter, like, or Ned's son, like, my bad.
Yeah.
So, like, why do we care about that? Like, what's the point of like, Ned pretending that he's his son, kind of thing? And I think once people realize that, like, Rhaegar is the father, and he's a Targaryen, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why that's super important, it'll click with, like, just show watchers who aren't as important.
I agree. I think that scene was a big nod towards book readers specifically because of those exact reasons. Like, just looking at a show perspective, it was kind of cool, but it wasn't like this huge earth-shattering moment for where book readers who have expected this for a long time, I guess, finally got their confirmation.
Yeah, I guess they didn't get the same, like, high out of it that we did, because when this scene started happening, I was like, yes! It was
like our bombshell moment. Like, it was our Ned Stark beheading or Red Wedding for show watchers.
Because, thing is, we were all but sure about this, but until we had a legitimate confirmation, like, we couldn't just say, like, yes, this is it. So this was just, like, that moment for us where it was like, thank God we were totally right about this, and, like, now everyone else knows, or should know.
This seems to be, like, the most agreed upon theory in the Game of Thrones universe. Like, it seems that everybody basically thinks that this is true, and it's not, like, a maybe controversial theory or anything. So, for you guys who knew about it, or for book readers, are you guys relieved that it was sort of confirmed here?
I had such huge emotions when the camera panned to adult or Kit Harington's face. I was just like, it was kind of like relief almost, like, oh my God, we've all been waiting so long for this. And, like, I didn't even care that it came on screen before it came in print. Like, it was just such a great moment.
I mean, I think it was one of those theories that it's not that... I don't think anyone really questioned its validity. Like, I'm pretty sure almost everyone was like, this is, like, I'm, like, 99.9% sure this is the truth. So I think it was just one of those moments where it was like, okay, like, now I can accept this as truth. I can move on. Like, it's great. I was, I mean, like I said, I was extremely excited to see the scene.
Yeah.
And I love the way they did it, where they went from baby Jon to them panning to Jon's face.
It was perfect. And something else we learned in that scene is that, like, we all knew Jon was not a Snow, but we also learned that Jon is not a Jon, that she named him something else. But Alexa, I want to tell you this. I must have watched that scene like 15 times, and I don't care what Jeremy said, she did not say Aemon.
Aemon? What do you think she said?
Well, her lips never formed in the way that they have to say M. like that didn't happen.
I just saw A. I saw A.
It's Andy.
Yeah, there's a decent chance. There's a decent chance it starts with an A, but I would bet pretty good money it's not Eamon.
Okay, I know that. So BuzzFeed was saying, and like it's BuzzFeed, but BuzzFeed was convinced that it's Jaehaerys, which is also like one of those. I don't know if it's Targaryen or Blackfire.
That's a Targaryen name. That was the name of the Mad King's father.
Okay. So that's what they were saying, but like I don't think there was enough, like that scene was like long enough for them to get such a long name from, because we just kind of saw like and that's it, and then it cut to Bran's face. So I don't know where BuzzFeed's getting that from. I think they're just kind of reaching there. But we do know that his name that was given to him wasn't Jon. I'm thinking it's a Targaryen-ass name, and Ned was like, well, I have to protect this kid, let me pretend it's my own. If it's a bastard, let's just name it Jon. No one's gonna care. Like, that's like the most nothing name.
Yeah.
There's a reason that, like, when we can't find someone's name, we call them, like, it's a John Doe. It's just, like, it's a nothing name. If anything, it won't draw any attention to him at all.
Very true.
So I think whatever name it was definitely Targaryen sounding, and it needed to go to protect this
Rhaegar Jr. That may have been a slight giveaway.
So we get a scene of Littlefinger and Sansa talking again, and so we're still sort of trying to figure out what Sansa wants to do with herself, kind of. Like, it seemed in that scene that Sansa was a little peeved that everybody was like, I mean, there's Ned's blood in him, so he's king.
Okay, so it's interesting because I've had this discussion with people, and some people are like, yo, she just wanted to be queen, and now she's pissed that Jon is. But, like, I didn't get that vibe.
I didn't get it till the very end of that scene.
See, the vibe I got was more of she's getting sick of, like, as hell of getting overlooked simply because she's a woman. Like, we had it last episode where she was like, Jon, listen to me, like, he's going to screw you over. And he's just like, nah, no, we got this. And she's like, trust me, like, I know what I'm talking about, like, I lived with this man. And he's kind of like, we'll do our own thing, like, we got this. And I think it's just, like, a moment now. Because it seemed like she wanted Jon to be the king of the North. She was basically like, no, you take it.
Right.
And he was like, no, but, like, I'm a bastard. And she was like, no, like, you're his son. Like, enough with this shit. Like, you're not just a bastard. And then I think the scene with Littlefinger was kind of getting in her head. So I don't think it's so much that she wants to be Queen of the North. I think it's just she's getting really sick of getting overlooked. And I think that might potentially cause tension between them. But I don't think it's like she's going to try and take over his, like, rule to Winterfell or anything. I think it's just more like Littlefinger's trying to tear them apart. And I think little by little he's working towards that because he wants her for himself.
Yeah, that's what I took that scene as too, was more that Littlefinger is such a freaking nuisance. Like, even though obviously his Knights of the Vale came in and saved the day, like, he doesn't do anything for anyone else unless they give him something in return.
I mean, and he outright said what he wanted. He's like, I'm gonna be, like, I want to be king, you're gonna be my queen. Yeah, and it's, that was kind of strange to me. Like, Littlefinger has never come off as the type to just outright state his intentions. But yeah, he's just kind of a nuisance, and obviously there's definitely some tension there between Jon and Sansa, but I think that was more to show us that it's Littlefinger's doing. Yeah. And he's still, he's still being a nuisance, and I think Sansa eventually, like, she knows what he is. I mean, he sold her to Ramsay Bolton, for goodness sake, so of course she's not going to marry him. But I think she still has to find out that he was the one who betrayed Ned Stark at the very beginning, and none of the Stark kids know that yet. So I think eventually that will come out, and that might be the tipping point for Littlefinger. I think also, like, this is kind of like another, like it proves that people are underestimating Sansa. Like, she is incredibly smart, And I think even Littlefinger is, like, assuming she's not going to figure things out. And he's, like, telling her his plans, kind of like, yeah, she's not going to get it. She's not going to figure this out. But, like, everyone's underestimating her. And I think that's why she's getting so frustrated as well. I think that's why Littlefinger's seed is, like, kind of planting in Sansa. But I think even Littlefinger's underestimating her.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So Jaime and Bronn are hanging out with Walder Frey, and the super obvious girl that is actually Arya is walking around.
Andy, remind me, who theorized that Arya would show up at the Twins and kill Walder Frey?
That was good. I'll give it to you. Oh,
that's right.
Yeah. You absolutely
the king is back.
You absolutely earned that one. So Arya used the teleportation magic to somehow show up over there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that scene was a good Arya scene, but in a whole it felt so like that was one of the most predictable Game of Thrones scenes I've ever watched. I felt like.
Can I just say how unbelievably creepy it was that we're all cheering the fact that a young girl baked 2 Freys into some kind of pie,
right? Like,
and then slit an old man's throat and, like, just stayed there holding his throat and, like, kind of digging into his neck or something at the end, and yet we're all cheering that a young girl is doing this, and she has this, like, really freaky smile on her face at the end.
I think it was just one of those moments where it's like, yes, Arya's back. Like, she is not taking anyone's shit. She is back with her kill list.
I felt like it was weird that she killed the other 2 guys. Like, that seemed...
They were more significant book characters. I knew you guys probably wouldn't really get that, but yeah, I mean, they're much more prominent in the books.
Even
so
then,
it's a big deal.
I assumed that Arya's kill list was very specific to the kill list, almost like Dexter in a way, where it was like, I only kill these type of people. But so that was the first time I sort of assumed that she was really not, like, she will do whatever it takes to get to those people, not just, like, those people.
I think also it had to do with, like, the fact that it's like, well, this guy killed my family, I'll kill his, kind of thing. I think it was just kind of, like, her own version of justice. And, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, did that feel like a little, like, kind of Lady Stoneheart to you?
I was gonna say that.
To get to it?
Was totally just gonna say that, and yeah, I think you're right.
So, I mean, I think at this point we can finally explain who Lady Stoneheart is, because if she's not coming in now, she's not coming in.
Watch her come in first episode next season.
There's no way. Okay, it was very unlikely that she would come in now. So, if more time passes, like, she can't come in.
Tell it, Alexa.
I mean,
don't do it. I don't want to do it now.
I'm doing
it later.
Yes.
Do it later. We have so much other stuff to cover.
It's very quick. It's not so much where I need to, like, sit there and explain everything. Andy, she's not coming in.
I'm going to read the books after the show's over.
Yeah, but that's still... George isn't going to publish the final book for, like, 10 years.
Yeah.
You can find out now.
No, I don't want it. I'm going to take my headphones off. I don't want to know.
Okay, you can take your headphones off. We can tell our listeners, because we've mentioned her a lot and they don't understand.
I'm taking my headphones off.
Okay, we'll make Joe, like, wave at him when it's time to come back. Okay, your headphones, is his headphones off?
They are, yes.
Okay, so Lady Stoneheart is a revived, kind of, like, undead Catelyn Stark, who the Brotherhood Without Banners brought back, and she is, like, out for blood for all the people who basically led to her death and her family's death. So that's about it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that, Joe.
Yeah, for the most part, her goal is just to kill as many Freys as possible, as well as, like, absolutely anyone else she deems who may have betrayed any Stark in her family. And I can now reveal that she nearly kills Brienne in the 5th book. But Brienne ends up saying, like, one specific word that saves her life. And near the end of the 5th book, Brienne meets up with Jaime again, and it ends with her leading him towards Lady Stoneheart, except he has no idea where he's going. So, kind of builds up to an interesting plot in the next book. But yeah, you pretty much covered it with Lady Stoneheart. So, But it's clear, just to be clear, we are not going to see her in the show. They definitely cut her out, and like you said earlier, Alexa, I think what we saw with Arya in this episode kind of it channels what Lady Stoneheart was doing. So, yeah.
I think she may like very well serve as the show's replacement for it. Is like we have like a very vengeful Arya instead of an undead Catelyn Stark.
Yeah, I agree.
Hello.
Hi.
We're done.
I bet it was great. One day I'll listen.
It was great.
So how does Arya use faces? I don't even know how faces work anymore. I thought you had to take them from that building. You just take any faces? You like put a face in her pocket and just left?
I imagine so. I mean, it's not. It's probably some sort of like a mask-like thing.
Yeah, we only see the faces come off, and so I don't know. Faces confuse me. So she can take faces now.
Apparently, she can.
Or she stole a bag of faces.
I doubt they keep them in like bags, but no, I was just
like in a Ziploc.
Like I was relieved with that scene just because, like that's what we were waiting so long for, and like that's what we thought she was going to Bravos like to learn how to do in the first place, and so it's nice to see the birth of like a true assassin, Arya.
Right.
And it's like you're just wondering like, okay, this little badass is back. Who's she gonna go after next?
So, I knew that this was going to happen because earlier in one of these episodes you told me that the actor said that people have seen her but didn't know she saw her. Like, in one of the I don't know, at some point. And so because of that, the moment that character was on screen, I was like, well, this is the last episode and this is the only place she could be. This is this person. So, you spoiled that for me, whoever said that. Whatever.
It was Maisie Williams, thank you.
It's been spoiled. So Varys went to Dorne?
Yeah, who predicted that, Andy?
Did you?
Yes, I did.
You're 2 for 2 right now.
He did.
You can have it.
I don't know how he went. I don't know how he got from Meereen to Dorne and then back to Meereen in the space of like an episode and a half.
He took a dragon.
Must have. Because, he's like, I didn't realize it, but he was in the back of Daenerys' like little boat, too, within like seconds.
So, explain the significance.
Frequent dragon miles.
Explain the significance of that.
Yes. Basically, it was interesting that Olenna got there quickly, too, because, of course, now her only goal is just complete revenge against Cersei. But Varys showing up there, kind of like we talked about before, was that he told Tyrion, we need friends in Westeros. And so the natural first place to start would be one of the islands that absolutely hates Cersei and like King's Landing in general. And plus Dorne has always been traditionally Targaryen supporters. So it was definitely the obvious place to start. And now when Daenerys gets back to Westeros, it seems like she's definitely going to have Dorne, the entire Dornish army on her side, as well as the Tyrell army, which is considerably big too.
Well, she had their fleets. Like, if you saw that, it's not just her flag and the Greyjoy flag on the boats. You could also see the Dornish flag and the Tyrell flag. So she already has their fleets.
Yeah, and then when she gets back, she'll have their armies too.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me like she has such a huge army. Like, the scale of armies has always sort of confused me in this show. Like, in my brain, the way it's set it up is her army is so big right now that I don't understand how anybody at King's Landing can sort of deal with it.
Okay, so I think this is where we're going to see Euron again, because he's trying to... He's trying to, like, get up in there, and his people are basically, like, pirates, and she's got, like, a bunch of Dothraki on board, so I think he may be a problem for her, because he might want to just take the army for himself. And he has the ability to do that.
I also want to note, in the books, I won't spoil it, but I will tell you that Euron has a special weapon at his disposal that poses a significant... I feel like it's
gonna be like a kraken or something.
A big squid.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a kraken.
No. Oh, lordy. let's just say Euron's gonna be a bigger threat than Cersei if they decide to follow the books. That's all I'll say.
And so I guess that last shot of the season was her big giant army with the dragons, where what we've been waiting 6 seasons for, Daenerys to get the heck over there and start doing stuff. It looks like they can't avoid that anymore because she's finally at a marine, and she's on boats headed to Westeros. So
they're gonna run into those stone men, and they're all gonna die and get grayscale.
Oh man, are we ever gonna see Jorah again?
He needs to get better.
Yeah, he'll teleport to Westeros or something.
Yeah, teleportation.
Varys will take him.
I mean, it seems like that team is just a thing in that time period.
I'm actually very disappointed that the wall didn't come down at the end of this season. I was so looking forward to that.
I'm sorry. I really thought it was going to happen.
I think that's going to definitely happen, maybe at the end of next season or at the beginning of it, because I think the wall falling marks the beginning of the end for the show, and we still have 2 seasons
they're like,
left.
well, we have like a season and 4 episodes, basically.
I mean, yes. But I think that's going to, like, I feel like once that happens, we're going to get our battle right away. And, like, if the battle's going to be the way the show ends, that might not even happen until the last episode of the next season.
So, is this something where we think the wall's going to come down and Daenerys and her army and the Westeros armies are sort of going to join together to fight the White Walkers? Or is there any speculation on how that's going to go down?
I mean, I pretty much think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean... They really have to get rid of Cersei and Euron, and then for the most part, you would think everyone left would be able to band together.
Band together, yeah.
And I could see, like, the final ultimate battle taking place at Winterfell, just because that's where the show started.
Yeah,
it would make the most sense, I think. Winter fell, and the White Walkers wiped everyone out. It's done.
Hopefully.
So, I don't know how much you want to go into this, but I have a friend who doesn't think the White Walkers are, like, purely evil. I don't know what you guys think about that.
We've actually discussed this before, I think. And I think the conclusion we came to was that for show purposes, they're meant to be the evil. But I don't know. Only 13 episodes or so left. It seems too late to be revealing, like, oh, these people aren't all bad.
Right.
After spending, like, 6 seasons kind of built, like, okay, there's some major threat coming, and now they've revealed them. And it's like, I think if they were anything other than pure evil, surely they would have revealed something by now.
Yeah, I think there's still so little that we know about them, so... let's just go with the assumption that, for now, they're just our big bad of the series.
Oh, Alexa, speaking of the whole Daenerys-Varys thing, I know you have some questions you would like to ask about Mr. Varys.
Okay, so, like, maybe it's because I started looking into, like, different theories and stuff.
Boo.
And maybe that's just...
You shouldn't have done it.
I'm not gonna go into all the theories because there are a bunch of them and I don't really understand. But it has made me question Varys' motives. Because this seems like something he's been planning. I mean, he's been planning it since Daenerys was born. He smuggled them out. I'm just trying to understand why you guys think that Varys has had this entire elaborate plan set up. Just like... because it doesn't seem to make sense to me that it just... because, like, I know, Joe, you had said that he thinks that Daenerys is the rightful leader and that she's just and all these things, but, like, if he's been planning this since she was born, there's no way knowing that she would have been the leader that she is now.
Okay, for show purposes only, let's... like, I won't go into any book theories or anything, just for show...
yeah, I don't...
the way I've always viewed it is... Varys and Illyrio have had a long-term plan to bring the right ruler, but the point is they've had to bide their time. Like they couldn't just like try to raise a Targaryen, or they couldn't betray Robert or Cersei or whoever else in any way. They had to bide their time until they were ready with the right person. And so, like, they waited to see what would become of Viserys, and then they waited to see what would become of Daenerys. And now that, obviously, they've established so many things about her, I think that's when Varys realized, like, okay, this is the one to support, and that's why he agreed to go to Meereen and send Tyrion over there, too.
So, you think, basically, that he feels that the Targaryens were betrayed and that they have the rightful claim to the throne, and that's the only reason why he supports them so much.
It's so hard to know. I don't think it's just purely a Targaryen thing, though. I really do think, like, I remember Ned Stark asked him in season 1, what do you really want, Varys? Like, what's your real motive? And Varys simply said, peace. And I think they want the person who can bring that over the long term. And so I don't think it mattered so much that Daenerys was a Targaryen. Like, the main advantage to that is that, like, everyone since her hasn't been very good. And, like, obviously the Targaryen bloodline holds the most weight because they ruled for hundreds of years. So that's... I don't know, though.
Because, like, the way I see that, like, what if Daenerys was, like, crazy just like Viserys? Like, that would have been a whole lot of risk-taking for something that they don't even understand the reward.
But they established that she wasn't mad like Viserys. That's why they waited so long. And then when she was over in Meereen, like, it was established, like, her beliefs and ideals. And so...
But what I'm saying isn't so much that. It's that this plan has been going on since they smuggled them out. So they could have smuggled them out, and then had Daenerys been just as mad as Viserys, it would have been all for nothing.
But Varys didn't... It's never been established that Varys had anything to do with sneaking Viserys out, because Daenerys wasn't even born until they were smuggled out and got back to Dragonstone. Like, that's where the queen gave birth to her. And it's known that Viserys and the queen, the pregnant queen, were smuggled out just by some of the Targaryen army. Like, it wasn't a matter of Varys specifically sneaking them out. Like, there were still Targaryen supporters who went to Dragonstone with them and protected them. And then when it was established that the Mad King was killed, and they were coming for the children too, that's when they went into exile.
But who smuggled them out then? To Pentos?
Prominent Targaryen supporters who unfortunately will not be seen in the show.
Okay. So Varys didn't have anything to do with that at that point?
Nope.
Okay, see, that's where I was confused, because I thought Varys was involved in that, and I was like, why the hell is he investing so much in something that could have little to no return?
Yeah, I mean, they're expert planners. I mean, if you remember in Season 1, Arya saw two people walking in shadows, and they were talking about possibly being ready to start a war. And then, obviously, we know that was Varys and Illyrio, but they were like, no, we're not ready yet. And so... Yeah, that was the main thing, is they were waiting for the right person. You would assume they meant it to be Viserys for a little bit, but then, of course, they established... Viserys he was crazy, and of course he went and got himself killed, and so they had to wait for someone else to come along. And then when Daenerys... Like, it's no coincidence that it was only when Daenerys really rose to power and established her ideals that's when Varys... made his motives clear and decided to go to Meereen. So.
Okay, that's what I was confused about.
Andy, any thoughts on that?
Nope.
Oh, that was confusing even for me.
Yeah, the thing is, it's because I have the whole, like, what I read about the Blackfire theory in my head. Now I'm like, nah, now I'm confused. I shouldn't have read any theories.
Yeah,
I screwed
that's
myself
the problem
over.
with reading theories.
Thing is, and I asked Joe, the theory that I read is very popular. So it's not just like a crackpot theory. But it did set some, like, doubt in my mind over what the hell Varys was doing.
Yeah, I would even say that theory is likely. Just if you think about the name Varys, it ends in Arys. Yeah. Like it reeks of Targaryen yes. association, at least.
Yes. I don't want to go into the Blackfire theory. We've already done enough.
We won't. No. Andy's head would literally explode here on camera.
I'm not ready for it.
But yeah, I think anything else we wanted to cover for that, or is that pretty much it?
I think we're good. We've talked for like an hour now.
Long one.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up our season 6 finale recap of The Winds of Winter. We hope you enjoyed season 6, and we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I think we're going to be back with a season 6 recap and maybe even a season 7 preview. So stay on the lookout for those. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at DeadScreenNet and at ACast4Crows. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Valar Morghulis.
Valar Morghulis.